Hyunsik walked slowly through the great halls of the Eternal Wanderer. His footsteps made soft sounds on the polished metal floor. The walls around him glowed with a warm golden light. Every surface was perfect. Every line was straight. Every curve was exact. He had seen this ship grow from nothing to everything. For 347 years, his people had worked on this one vessel. His great-grandfather had laid the first metal plate. His grandfather had installed the first power core. His father had built the first living quarters. Now Hyunsik was finishing what his family had started so long ago. Behind him, So-min followed quietly. She was young, only 50 years old. She had never known a world where her people were not building this ship. To her, the work was normal. To Hyunsik, it was everything. "Master," So-min said softly, "the last wall panel is ready." Hyunsik stopped walking. He turned to look at his apprentice. Her eyes were bright with excitement. She did not understand what this moment meant. When they finished this ship, there would be no more building, no more creating, no more great work to do. "Show me," he said. They walked together to the final section. Here a group of craftsmen were putting the last piece into place. The panel was made of the finest metals their world could produce. It had been shaped by master artists. Every small detail had been carved by hand. It would last for thousands of years. The craftsmen stepped back. Their work was done. Hyunsik placed his hand on the new panel. It felt warm under his palm. It felt alive. 347 years, he whispered. "My people have given everything for this." So-min did not understand his sadness. She saw only beauty. The ship was huge beyond imagining. It could hold all 50,000 of their people. It had gardens where food would grow. It had workshops where new things could be made. It had schools where children would learn. It was a world that could fly between the stars. "Come," Hyunsik said. "Let me show you what we have built." They walked to the center of the ship. Here was the great hall where all their people would gather. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows. The walls were covered with pictures that told the story of their race. Every picture had been painted by the finest artists. Every color had been mixed by hand. "Look up," Hyunsik said. So-min raised her head. Far above them, windows showed the stars. But these were not ordinary windows. They were made from crystal that had been grown in the deep caves of their world. Each piece had taken 10 years to grow. Each piece was perfect and clear. "We could have made simple glass," Hyunsik said. "It would have worked just as well. But we did not want simple. We wanted perfect. We wanted something that would last forever." They walked on. Hyunsik showed So-min the engines. Each one was a work of art. The metal had been shaped into beautiful forms. The power cores glowed like small suns. These engines could push the ship faster than light itself. They would never break. They would never fail. "Other races build things quickly," Hyunsik said. "They use machines to make many things at once. They do not care if every piece is perfect. They only care if it works." So-min had heard stories of such races. She could not imagine building something without love, without care, without making every part as beautiful as possible. They came to the living quarters. Each family would have their own space. Every room had been built by hand. The walls curved in pleasing ways. The floors were made of wood from the sacred trees. Even the air systems had been carved with decorative patterns. "Why did we take so long?" So-min asked. "Could we not have finished sooner?" Hyunsik smiled sadly. "We could have built 10 ships in the time it took to build one. We could have used machines instead of hands. We could have made things that were good enough instead of perfect. But then we would not be who we are." They reached the bridge. This was where the ship would be controlled. The walls were covered with instruments made from rare metals. Each button had been carved from precious stones. The great viewing screen was made from the same crystal as the windows. Everything here was beautiful and perfect. "Our sun is dying," Hyunsik said. "In 20 years, our world will be too hot to live on. In 50 years, our sun will grow so large it will eat our planet. We built this ship to save our people." So-min knew this. Everyone knew this. But hearing it from Hyunsik made it seem more real. "We could have started building sooner," he continued. "We could have built many smaller ships. But we wanted to take our whole world with us. Every piece of art, every book, every memory. We wanted to keep our culture alive among the stars." An alarm sounded softly. So-min looked at the instruments. "Master," she said. "The long-range sensors are detecting something." Hyunsik moved to the controls. His hands danced over the beautiful instruments. On the great screen, dots of light appeared. Many dots. More dots than he had ever seen in one place. Ships, he breathed. A whole fleet of ships. The dots grew larger as the screen focused on them. These ships were strange. They were not beautiful like the Eternal Wanderer. They looked rough and simple, but there were so many of them. Who could build so many ships? Somin asked. Hyunsik did not know. His people had spent centuries building one perfect vessel. Who had the power to build hundreds of rough ones? Send a message to all sections, he said. Tell them to prepare. We may have visitors soon. As Somin sent the message, Hyunsik stared at the screen. The unknown ships were getting closer. Soon he would have answers. Soon he would meet the people who could build fleets while his people built single ships. He wondered if they would understand what the Eternal Wanderer truly was. He wondered if they would see its beauty. Or would they only see one ship where they had many? The dots grew larger on the screen. First contact was coming. Captain Jin Ho stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride and stared at his main screen. What he saw there made no sense. The object ahead of them was huge. Bigger than any ship he had ever seen. Bigger than most space stations. Yunbi, he called to his cultural officer. Are you seeing this? Yunbi looked up from her instruments. Her eyes were wide with surprise. Sir, that thing is 12 kilometers long. Our biggest ships are only 2 kilometers. What kind of civilization builds something that massive? Jinho had been exploring space for 15 years. He had found many alien races. Some were friendly, some were not. But he had never found anything like this. The huge ship was not just big. It was beautiful. Its surface gleamed like polished metal. Strange patterns covered its hull. It looked more like art than a machine. Is it moving? Jinho asked. Very slowly, sir. It seems to be leaving this solar system. But at this speed, it will take years to reach the next star. Jinho thought about this. Human ships could travel much faster. They could cross the same distance in weeks. Why would anyone build a ship that moved so slowly? Sir, his communications officer called. I'm getting signals from inside the object. There are life forms aboard. Lots of them. How many? Maybe 50,000, sir. Jinho whistled softly. 50,000 people on one ship. That was more than lived on most human colonies. This was not just a ship. This was a flying city. Open a channel, he ordered. Let's see if they want to talk. The screen changed. Now it showed the inside of the alien ship. Jinho gasped. Everything was beautiful. The walls glowed with soft light. Decorative patterns covered every surface. It looked like the inside of a palace. 2 aliens appeared on the screen. One was old with gray skin and wise eyes. The other was younger with smooth skin and bright eyes. They both looked surprised to see humans. The older alien spoke first. His voice was deep and musical. But Jinho could not understand the words. Yunbi, can you translate? Working on it, sir. The computer is analyzing their language. She worked at her controls for a few minutes. I think I have it. Let me try. She spoke into her communicator. Strange sounds came out. The aliens looked even more surprised. The younger one answered in the same strange language. What did they say? Jinho asked. The old one is named Hyunsik. He's the master builder of their ship. The young one is So-min, his apprentice. They want to know who we are and how we got here. Jinho stood up. This was first contact with a new species. He had to be careful. Tell them I am Captain Jinho of the Human Exploration Fleet. We come in peace. We wish to learn about them and their amazing ship, Yunbi translated. The aliens talked between themselves for a moment. Then Hyunsik spoke again. He says they are the Vorthak people. Their son is dying, so they built this ship to find a new home. He asks how many ships we have in our fleet. Jinho looked at his tactical display. 12 exploration ships plus support vessels. About 20 ships total. When Yunbi translated this, both aliens looked shocked. They talked quickly between themselves. So-min pointed at something off-screen. What's wrong? Jinho asked. I think they're surprised we have so many ships. Hyunsik is asking how long it took us to build them. Our ships? The Soul's Pride took 8 months to build. The others took similar time. Yunbi translated. Now the aliens looked even more shocked. Hyunsik spoke for a long time, his voice getting more excited. Sir, you're not going to believe this. He says their ship took 347 years to build. They used their entire civilization to build this one vessel. Every piece was made by hand. Every part was crafted to be perfect. Jinho sat down hard in his chair. 347 years for one ship. That was impossible. Humans built hundreds of ships every year across their colonies. Ask him how many people worked on it. After translation, Hyun-sik answered proudly. Everyone, sir. Their entire species worked on this ship. For over 3 centuries, it was the only thing they built. Jin-ho tried to imagine this. An entire civilization spending hundreds of years on one project. It seemed wasteful, but looking at the beautiful ship, he could understand their pride. Tell him it's magnificent. Ask if we can come aboard and see it. The aliens talked between themselves. Hyun-sik seemed worried, but So-min appeared excited. Finally, Hyun-sik nodded. They agree, sir, but they want to see one of our ships too. They can't believe we built 20 ships so quickly. An hour later, Jin-ho and Yunbi were aboard the alien ship. They floated through the beautiful halls in environmental suits. Everything around them was perfect. The walls curved in pleasing ways. The lighting was soft and warm. Art covered every surface. Hyun-sik and So-min guided them through the ship. They showed them the great hall where all the Vorthok would gather. They showed them the engines, which looked more like sculptures than machines. They showed them the living quarters, where each family would have a home more beautiful than most human palaces. This is incredible, Yunbi whispered to Jin-ho. Every single thing was made by hand. Look at these wall panels. Each one is unique. Each one is a work of art, Jin-ho nodded. He was beginning to understand these people. They did not just build things to work. They built things to be beautiful. They built things to last forever. Hyun-sik showed them a small room filled with books. Real books made from paper and leather. Each one had been written by hand and illustrated with beautiful pictures. He says this is their library, Yunbi translated. Every book their people ever wrote is here. Every story, every poem, every piece of knowledge. They wanted to take their entire culture with them to the stars. Jin-ho picked up one of the books. Even though he could not read it, he could see the love that had gone into making it. Every letter was perfectly formed. Every picture was beautifully painted. Ask him about our ship, Jin-ho said. What does he think of our building methods? When Yunbi translated the question, Hyun-sik's expression changed. He looked confused and a little sad. He says he doesn't understand how we can build so quickly. He asks if our ships are made by machines instead of hands. He wants to know if we care about making them beautiful. Jin-ho thought about this. Human ships were built by machines in huge factories. They were built to be practical and efficient. They were not built to be art. Tell him our methods are different. We build many ships because we need many ships. We build them to work well and last a long time, but we do not make each one perfect. Hyun-sik listened to the translation. Then he spoke for a long time, his voice growing more passionate. He says that's impossible. He says anything worth building is worth building perfectly. He says your ships must be weak and ugly if they're built so quickly. Jin-ho felt a flash of anger, but then he looked around at the beautiful ship. These people had spent centuries creating this masterpiece. They could not imagine any other way. Tell him I would like to show him something, Jin-ho said. Tell him I want to prove that our methods have value too. Hyun-sik stood in the meeting hall of his great ship. Across from him sat Captain Jin-ho and Officer Yunbi. The humans looked so small in the vast, beautiful room. Their simple uniforms seemed crude next to the artistic walls and glowing ceiling. You say your ships are as good as ours? Hyun-sik said through the translator. But how can this be true? You build them in months, not centuries. You use machines, not skilled hands. You make many copies instead of one perfect original. Jin-ho leaned forward. Master Hyun-sik, your ship is beautiful. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But beauty is not the only way to measure worth. What other way is there? So-min asked. She could not hide her curiosity about these strange humans. Effectiveness, Yunbi said. Our ships do their job well. They carry people safely between stars. They last for many years. They can be repaired quickly if something breaks. Hyun-sik shook his head. But they are not perfect. If something is not perfect, why build it at all? Jin-ho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Let me ask you something. How long would it take your people to build a second ship like this one? Another 300 years, Hyun-sik said proudly. Maybe less since we now know how to do it. But it would still take lifetimes. What if your people needed to evacuate quickly? What if you had only years instead of centuries? Hyun-sik frowned. That would be impossible. No one could build something this complex quickly. That's where you're wrong, Jin-ho said. Our methods might seem crude to you, but they have one great advantage. Speed. So-min looked confused. But what good is speed if the result is inferior? Jin-ho stood up. Let me show you something. Master Hyunsik, would you like to see a demonstration of human shipbuilding? You mean you want to build a ship here? Now? Not just one ship. Multiple ships. Ships that together can carry as many people as your eternal wanderer. Hyunsik laughed. It was not a cruel laugh, but one of disbelief. Captain Jinho, you seem like an honest person. But what you suggest is impossible. Even if you had all the materials here, which you do not, it would take years to build even a small ship. How long would you say it should take? Jinho asked. To build ships that could carry 50,000 people, with proper construction methods? At least 50 years. Maybe more. Jinho's smile grew wider. What if I told you we could do it in 1 week? Now Hyunsik did laugh, and it was not friendly. 1 week? Captain, I think your translation device is broken. Surely you mean 1 decade? No, 1 week. 7 days, So Min gasped. Master, he must be joking. But Hyunsik looked at Jinho's face. The human was serious. You really believe you can do this impossible thing? I don't just believe it. I'm offering to prove it. Hyunsik felt a strange mix of emotions. These humans seemed to think they could do in days what had taken his people centuries. It was insulting. It was impossible. But there was something in Jinho's confidence that made him curious. Even if such a thing were possible, Hyunsik said slowly, you do not have the materials. You do not have the workers. You do not have the facilities. That's what you think, Yunbi said. She was working on a small device. Captain, I've sent word to Admiral Taejun at Kepler Station. The message will reach him in 6 hours. What message? So Min asked. A challenge accepted, Jinho said. We're going to build a fleet right here in your solar system in 7 days. Hyunsik shook his head. This is madness. You have 20 ships. How can you build hundreds? We don't just travel in these ships, Yunbi explained. We live in a network of worlds and stations. When we need something built, we call on that network. Show them, Jinho said. Yunbi activated her device. A picture appeared in the air above the table. It showed a massive space station with ships coming and going like insects around a hive. This is Kepler Station, she said. It builds ships for this entire sector of space. It can build a cruiser in 3 days, a transport in 2 days, a cargo ship in 1 day. One station? Hyunsik asked. One of many. We have hundreds of shipyards across human space. When we need ships quickly, we ask them all to help. So Min stared at the picture. But who builds these stations? Other stations, Jinho said. We build the tools that build the tools that build the ships. Hyunsik tried to understand this. You mean you have machines that build machines? Exactly. And those machines build bigger machines. And those bigger machines build ships. But who designed all these machines? Who taught them to build properly? Yunbi smiled. Other machines. We build artificial minds that can design new things. We build robots that can teach other robots. Hyunsik felt dizzy. This was so different from how his people worked. Every Vorthak learned their craft from a master. Every tool was made by hand. Every design came from centuries of tradition. This sounds terrible, he said. How do you maintain quality? How do you ensure beauty? How do you put love into your work if machines do everything? Jinho was quiet for a moment. We put love into different things. We love the results, not just the process. We love being able to help people quickly when they need help. We love being able to explore new worlds because we can build the ships to get there. A soft chime sounded from Yunbi's device. She looked at it and smiled. Admiral Taejun responds. He accepts the challenge. Construction assets are being mobilized from 12 systems. First ships should arrive here in 18 hours. Ships? Somin asked. What kind of ships? Mobile shipyards, construction platforms, mining vessels, resource processors. Everything we need to build a fleet. Hyunsik stood up abruptly. I do not believe this. You cannot turn raw space into finished ships in 1 week. We don't start with raw space, Jinho said. We start with infrastructure, machines, systems, processes that we've refined for centuries. Your people have had centuries too? Somin asked. Our species has been building things for thousands of years, but we've been building in space for only 300 years. In that time, we've learned to build faster and better. Better? Hyunsik's voice rose. How can faster be better? Jinho gestured toward the beautiful walls around them. Master Hyunsik, your ship is perfect. But what if your sun had exploded tomorrow instead of giving you decades of warning? What if another species had attacked your world? What if you had needed to save your people quickly? Hyunsik had no answer. The Eternal Wanderer was perfect, but it had taken so long to build. If his people had faced a sudden crisis, they would have died waiting for perfection. Speed has its own kind of perfection, Yunbi said gently. The perfection of being ready when needed. The perfection of saving lives that would otherwise be lost. Somin looked thoughtful. Master, what if they are right? What if there is value in building quickly? Hyunsik sat down heavily. Everything he believed about construction and craftsmanship was being challenged. Even if you could build ships quickly, they would not be like this one. They would not be beautiful. They would not last forever. Maybe not, Jinho agreed. But they would carry your people to safety. They would give them new homes among the stars. They would let your culture survive and grow. And when they broke down, Hyunsik asked, we would fix them, or build new ones to replace them. That's another advantage of building quickly. You can afford to lose things because you can make more. Hyunsik looked around his perfect ship. Every surface was irreplaceable. Every component had been crafted over years. If something broke, it would take months to fix it properly. I still do not believe you can do what you claim, he said finally. But I'm curious to see you try, Jinho smiled. Then you'll help us? You'll watch our construction process? Yes, Hyunsik said. And when you fail, perhaps you will understand why my people build as we do. But even as he spoke, Hyunsik felt a small doubt growing in his mind. These humans seemed very confident. What if they actually could do the impossible? Somin pressed her face against the crystal window of the Eternal Wanderer's observation deck. Outside, the empty space around their ship was empty no more. Huge vessels were arriving one by one, each one different from the last. Master, look at this one, she called to Hyunsik. He joined her at the window. A massive ship was moving slowly into position. It was ugly compared to their beautiful vessel, but it was also enormous. Strange arms and mechanical devices covered its surface. What is it? Hyunsik asked. Captain Jinho stood nearby with his officer Yunbi. They had been watching the arrivals for hours. That's the Busan constructor. It's a mobile shipyard. It can build a frigate in 4 days. It looks like a machine, Somin said. It is a machine. A very big, very smart machine. More ships arrived. Mining vessels that could break apart asteroids. Processing plants that could turn raw rock into refined metal. Transport ships carrying supplies from distant worlds. Construction platforms bristling with robotic arms and fabrication units. How many? Hyunsik asked quietly. Jinho checked his device. 47 vessels so far. More coming. Hyunsik could not believe what he was seeing. In less than 2 days, the humans had assembled a fleet larger than any he had ever imagined. And these were not warships or exploration vessels. These were working ships. Ships built to build other ships, Master, Somin whispered. They really meant it. They're actually going to try. A new voice spoke behind them. Not try, do. They turned to see a new human approaching. This one was older than Jinho, with gray hair and confident eyes. Her uniform had different markings. This is Admiral Taejun, Jinho said. She's in charge of the construction project. Taejun bowed slightly to the Vorthak. Master Hyunsik, your ship is magnificent. I've never seen anything like it. Thank you, Hyunsik said carefully. Your ships are many. Taejun smiled. Many and growing. We've started mining operations on 3 asteroids. The first refinery is already producing hull plating. Construction should begin in 6 hours. 6 hours? Somin gasped. But you just arrived. We don't waste time, Taejun said. Every hour we delay is an hour lost. In space, delays can mean death. She led them to a viewing screen that showed the growing industrial operation. Robotic miners were already chewing through asteroid rock. Automated factories were processing the raw materials. Assembly platforms were moving into position. This is impossible, Hyunsik muttered. You cannot build ships from raw asteroids in days. Watch and learn, Taejun said. A new figure approached them. This was a human woman in a work uniform covered with tool attachments. Her name tag read Minji. Admiral, Minji reported. First hull sections are coming off the fabricators. We're ahead of schedule. Excellent. Show our guests the process. Minji nodded and activated a control panel. The viewing screen changed to show the inside of one of the construction ships. Robotic arms moved with incredible speed and precision. Metal plates were being cut, shaped, and welded together in a continuous flow. Each fabricator can produce 1 ship section every 20 minutes, Minji explained. We have 36 fabricators working in parallel. Somin tried to do the math. That's more than 1 section per minute. Exactly. We don't build 1 ship at a time. We build many ships at once using assembly line methods. Hyun-sik watched the mechanical dance with growing amazement. But how do you ensure quality? How do you check each piece? Automated inspection systems, Minji said. Every piece is scanned by sensors that can detect flaws smaller than your eye can see. Defective parts are recycled immediately. What about workers? Who guides the machines? The machines guide themselves mostly. Human supervisors handle problems and make decisions, but the basic construction is automated. This was too much for Hyun-sik to understand. You trust machines to build properly? We trust machines to follow instructions perfectly, Tae-jun said. Humans are good at designing and deciding. Machines are good at building and measuring. On the screen, the first hull section was complete. It looked rough compared to the perfect surfaces of the Eternal Wanderer, but it was solid and functional. It's ugly, Somin said. It's effective, Minji replied without offense. Beauty can be added later if desired. Function comes first. More screens showed other construction sites. Engine components were being assembled. Life support systems were being tested. Electronic systems were being installed and programmed. How do you coordinate all of this? Hyun-sik asked. Yunbi answered. Computer networks link all the construction sites. Artificial intelligence systems handle most of the scheduling and logistics. Human managers oversee the process. You let artificial minds make decisions about your ships? Why not? They can process more information than any human. They can track thousands of components and operations simultaneously. They make fewer mistakes than people do. Hyun-sik felt lost. Everything the humans did went against his people's way of thinking. Machines instead of hands. Speed instead of perfection. Many simple things instead of one complex thing. Master, Somin said quietly. Look at how fast they work. On the screens, the construction was accelerating. The first ship hull was taking shape. It was small compared to the Eternal Wanderer, but it was growing quickly.
Other hulls were starting on different platforms. How many ships will you build?
Hyun-sik asked. Enough to carry 50,000 people comfortably, Tae-jun said. Probably around 200 vessels of various sizes. 200 ships in 7 days? We could build more if needed. This is actually a small project for us. Hyun-sik sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Small project? Jin-ho sat beside him. Master Hyun-sik, you built one perfect ship for your entire civilization. We build ships for dozens of worlds and millions of people. We have to build quickly and efficiently. But don't you want them to be perfect? We want them to be good enough to do their job safely. Perfect is nice, but good enough saves lives. Minji's radio crackled. Chief, we've got first atmospheric processors online. Hull Section 12 is ready for systems installation. Already? Tae-jun checked her schedule. We're running 4 hours ahead of plan. Somin looked confused. Is that bad? No, it's excellent. It means we might finish early. Finish early? Hyun-sik stood up. You plan to do the impossible in 7 days, and now you might do it faster? Experience teaches efficiency, Tae-jun said. Every project we complete makes the next one easier. They watched through the day as the construction continued. Ships took shape with amazing speed. Systems were installed and tested. Crews of robots worked without stopping, guided by computer minds that never got tired or made mistakes. By evening, the first ship was nearly complete. It was a simple transport vessel, designed to carry passengers between worlds. It had basic life support, efficient engines, and comfortable living spaces. It was not beautiful like the Eternal Wanderer, but it looked solid and reliable. Would you like to inspect it? Tae-jun asked. Hyun-sik and So-min suited up and traveled to the new ship. Inside, it felt very different from their vessel. The walls were plain metal. The floors were simple and practical. Everything was designed for function rather than beauty, but it worked. The air was clean and warm. The lights were bright and steady. The gravity felt normal under their feet. It's not pretty, So-min said, but it's complete, Hyun-sik admitted. In 1 day you built something that could carry people safely through space. Minji joined them. This one will hold 250 people. We're building bigger ones too. Cargo ships, supply vessels, even a small hospital ship. Hospital ship. Medical facilities in space. Your people might need medical care during the journey to a new world. Hyun-sik had not thought of this. The Eternal Wanderer had some medical equipment, but nothing like a dedicated hospital. You think of everything, he said. We try to plan for problems before they happen, Minji said. It's easier to build extra capacity now than to wish we had it later. They returned to the Eternal Wanderer as the human construction continued around them. More ships were taking shape. The asteroid mining had expanded to provide more raw materials. The fabrication plants were running at full capacity. "Master," So-Min said as they watched from their observation deck. "They're really going to do it." Yun-Sik nodded slowly. "I believe they are. What does this mean for us? For our way of building?" Yun-Sik was quiet for a long time. "I don't know," he finally said. "But I'm beginning to think there might be room for both ways in the universe." On the 7th day, Yun-Sik stood on the bridge of the Eternal Wanderer and stared at what the humans had built. Around his perfect ship floated a fleet of 212 vessels. Transport ships, cargo haulers, supply vessels, repair platforms, and even 3 mobile shipyards that could build more ships as needed. "It's finished," So-Min whispered beside him. Admiral Taejun's voice came through the communication system. "Master Hyun-Sik, the fleet is ready for your inspection. Total capacity, 55,000 people with room for supplies and equipment." Hyun-Sik closed his eyes. 7 days ago, he had thought it was impossible. Now the evidence floated before him in space. The humans had done exactly what they promised. How? He asked quietly. Captain Jinho and Officer Yunbi stood nearby. They had watched the construction process with him, answering his questions and explaining their methods. "Preparation," Jinho said. "We've spent 300 years learning how to build quickly. Every technique, every machine, every process has been tested and improved. But they're not perfect," Hyun-Sik said. He was not criticizing now, just trying to understand. "No," Yunbi agreed. "Each ship has small flaws. The metal isn't quite as pure as it could be. The curves aren't perfectly smooth. The systems are reliable but not elegant. Then why build them this way?" Jinho moved to stand beside him at the viewing window. "Because perfect is the enemy of good enough. Your people spent 3 centuries building one perfect ship. In the same time, we could have built thousands of good ships. But what if those thousands were attacked? What if they broke down? Then we would build more to replace them. That's the power of our method. We can afford to lose ships because we can make more quickly." So-Min looked confused. "You expect your ships to be lost?" "Everything breaks eventually," Yunbi said. "Everything wears out. Everything can be destroyed. The question is, what do you do when that happens?" "We repair it," Hyun-Sik said. "We rebuild it better than before." "That works if you have time," Jinho said. "But what if you don't? What if people need rescue right now? What if a colony is under attack? What if a plague breaks out and you need medical ships immediately?" Hyun-Sik had no answer. The Eternal Wanderer was perfect, but if something happened to it, his people would have nothing. A new voice joined the conversation. Admiral Taejun had arrived on their bridge. She looked tired but satisfied. "The fleet is ready," she announced. "All ships have passed their basic tests. Life support is working. Engines are operational. They can leave whenever you're ready." "Leave?" Hyun-Sik asked. "For your new home. That's why we built them, isn't it? To help your people escape their dying sun?" Hyun-Sik felt overwhelmed. "But we already have the Eternal Wanderer. We don't need more ships, don't you?" Taejun asked gently. "What if something happens to your one perfect ship? What if it breaks down between stars? What if you encounter hostile aliens? Wouldn't it be better to have backup plans?" So-Min spoke up. "Master, she's right. If anything happened to our ship, our entire people would die." "Nothing will happen to it," Hyun-Sik said firmly. "It was built to last forever." "So were many things," Jinho said quietly. "But forever is a very long time." Taejun activated a display screen. It showed star charts of the local region. "We have another offer for you. Instead of traveling alone to find a new world, why not join our colonial network?" "What does that mean?" "We have settlements on dozens of worlds throughout this region. You could choose any of them as your new home. Your people would be welcome. Your skills would be valued." Hyun-Sik studied the star chart. So many worlds. So many possibilities. "What would you want in return?" "Your knowledge," Yunbi said. "Your craftsmanship. Your attention to detail. We know how to build quickly, but you know how to build beautifully. You could teach us to make things that last longer," Taejun added. "And we could teach you to make them faster when speed is needed." So-Min's eyes lit up. "Master, imagine what we could create together. Human efficiency with Vorthak artistry." Hyun-Sik walked to the great viewing window. Outside, the human fleet waited patiently. Each ship was simple and functional. None was beautiful like his vessel. But together they represented something he had never imagined possible. "Your ships," he said finally. "They could really carry all my people safely?" "Yes," Taejun said. "We tested them thoroughly. They're not as comfortable as your ship, but they're reliable. And you built them in 7 days. Actually 6 days and 18 hours. We finished ahead of schedule." Hyunsik laughed despite himself. "Of course you did." He thought about his people scattered throughout the Eternal Wanderer. 50,000 souls who had trusted him to save them. They had spent their entire lives working on this one ship. It was their home, their masterpiece, their legacy. But it was also their only hope. If something happened to it, they would all die. "What would happen to the Eternal Wanderer?" he asked. "It would remain your flagship," Jinho said. "The most beautiful ship in the fleet. The symbol of your people's skill and dedication. But not our only ship. Not anymore." Hyunsik made his decision. "So-min, send word to all sections. Tell our people we have an offer to consider." Over the next few hours, representatives from every part of Vorthak society came to hear the human proposal. They toured the new ships. They listened to explanations of human technology and culture. They debated long into the night. Some were horrified by the crude human ships. Others were amazed by their efficiency. Some wanted to maintain their traditional ways. Others were eager to learn new methods. Finally, the Council of Elders reached their decision. Elder Dongwu spoke for them all. "We accept the human offer. We will join their colonial network. But we have conditions." "Name them," Taejun said. "The Eternal Wanderer remains our primary vessel. It will be preserved exactly as it is. Our traditional crafts will continue to be taught and practiced. Our culture will not be lost in the mixing." "Agreed," Jinho said immediately. "Your culture is precious. We want to learn from it, not destroy it." "And in return," Elder Dongwu continued, "we will share our knowledge with the humans. We will teach them to build with beauty as well as speed. Perhaps together we can create something neither could achieve alone." Hyunsik felt a strange mix of sadness and excitement. Everything was changing. The certainties he had lived by for so long were being challenged. But maybe that was not a bad thing. "Master," So-min said quietly, "are you happy with this decision?" Hyunsik looked out at the fleet of human ships. They were not beautiful, but they were there. They were real. They offered security and possibilities he had never imagined. "I think," he said slowly, "that I am curious about what comes next." Admiral Tae-jun approached him. "Master Hyunsik, there's one more thing you should know." "What?" "This fleet we built for you? It was a small project for us. We actually reduced production at 17 other shipyards to focus on it." Hyunsik stared at her. "Small project?" "We build about 4,000 ships per year across human space. This week's work was less than 5% of our normal output." So-min gasped. "You mean while you were building us 200 ships, you were building thousands more elsewhere?" "Exactly," Taejun said. "That's why we could afford to take the challenge. For us, this was a routine industrial operation." Hyunsik sat down heavily. His people had spent centuries building one ship. "The humans built thousands every year as a matter of course. Now do you understand?" Jinho asked gently. "Why we build the way we do?" Hyunsik nodded slowly. "I'm beginning to." He looked around the bridge of his perfect ship. Every surface was beautiful. Every system was crafted with love. It had taken lifetimes to create. But outside his window, 200 functional ships waited to carry his people to safety. They had been built in a week by machines guided by minds that never tired or made errors. Both approaches had value. Both had their place. "Captain Jinho," Hyunsik said, "when do we begin our journey to this new world of ours?" Jinho smiled. "Whenever you're ready, Master. The fleet will follow your lead." Hyunsik moved to the ship's control station. His hands touched the beautiful instruments his people had crafted over decades. Around him, the perfect bridge glowed with soft artistic light. But now he was not alone. Now his one perfect ship was surrounded by a fleet of practical vessels, each one ready to help and protect his people. "Begin departure sequence," he ordered. "All ships prepare to leave this dying system." As the great fleet began to move, Hyunsik felt something he had not expected. Hope. Not just hope for survival, but hope for growth. Hope for learning. Hope for becoming something new while staying true to what they were. The Eternal Wanderer led the way into the darkness between stars, no longer alone, no longer perfect in its isolation, but part of something larger and more complex than any single ship could be. Behind them, the construction platforms were already beginning to disassemble themselves, ready to move on to the next project, the next impossible challenge that would become routine through the power of human industrial might.